Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Gopi Chandra Vallabha Giri
Hare Krishna.
Welcome to this morning's class. This is Wednesday, the 24th of June 2020. So we're continuing on with the Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, text number 34 today. The son of Drona punished. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, text number 34. Shibirayani Nishantam Orajva Banva Vipumbalat Praharjunam Prakupito Bhagavan Ambujekshana Shibirayani Nishantam Rajva Banva Vipumbalat Praharjunam Prakupito Bhagavan Ambujekshana Shibirayani Nishantam Rajva Badva Vipumbalat Praharjunam Prakupito Bhagavan Ambujekshana Shivaraya. On the way to the military camp.
On the way to the military camp.
Ninishantam. While bringing him. Rajva. By the ropes. Bandva. Bound up. Ripam. The enemy. Balat. By force. Praha. Said. Arjunam. Unto Arjuna. Prakupita. In an angry mood. Bhagavan. The personality of Godhead. Ambuja Ikshana. Who looks with his lotus eyes. Translation. Purpose by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. After binding Ashvatam, Arjuna wanted to take him to the military camp. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, looking on with his lotus eyes, spoke to angry Arjuna. Purport. Both Arjuna and Lord Sri Krishna are described here in an angry mood. But Arjuna's eyes were like balls of red copper, whereas the eyes of the Lord were like lotuses. This means that the angry mood of Arjuna and that of the Lord are not on the same level. The Lord is transcendence, and thus he is absolute in any stage. His anger is not like the anger of a conditioned living being within the modes of qualitative material nature.
Speak up.
Because he is absolute, both his anger and pleasure are the same. His anger is not exhibited in the three modes of material nature. It is only a sign of his bent of mind toward the cause of his devotee, because that is his transcendental nature. Therefore, even if he is angry, the object of anger is blessed. He is unchanged in all circumstances. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him who all wish to bedie Krishna's Shivani Satsrutas Goswami Iti Namani, and all wish to bedie Krishna's Tale. Shimali Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Adechitani. So we have a very interesting situation here, and the main thing that I take from it, I didn't take it to go for a class about anger, because we can see Arjuna is angry here, and Krishna is angry but not angry at the same time. But what I did was I wanted to talk about Krishna's qualities, which are different from us as living beings, and how they are different, and why we need to concentrate a lot on Krishna's qualities. The whole Bhagavatam, the whole Bhagavad Gita, in fact the whole Krishna consciousness movement is directed towards concentrating our minds upon Krishna. The reason for that is that we have a choice. We can concentrate our minds upon our minds, upon the false ego, or we can try to instead concentrate the mind on Krishna and realize our eternal position as a servant of Krishna. So therefore we need lots and lots of advertising from Krishna and the sources, Guru, Krishna and Shastra. So we need this constant advertising, especially in this particular age of Kali, where there's lots of other advertising going on. There's so much advertising to enjoy the senses, or to be here in the material world, or to stay here in the material world as the all in all. We are not impacted, but we're influenced by within the desire to be happy. Anando Mayo Vyasat. Like the living entity always is looking for happiness. So generally the living entity then is looking outwards for its happiness in this world. It's the mind, the senses, and sense objects. That's what's impelling us to try to seek shelter in these things. We're looking for satisfaction. We're looking for happiness and contentment, peace of mind. All of these things we're searching outwards for. We're searching, unfortunately, with the false ego, because I want happiness, I want peace, so that is the unfortunate position of the living entity caught in this material world. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita asks us to go within, to realize who we are within, and therefore the whole process of Krishna consciousness is the process of self-realization. Also, there is a huge emphasis for us to become introspective, to look within, introspective, to specio, to see, to look within, and what that does is that it allows us to be alert to the mind, the body, the senses, the tongue, so that we can control these items, control the mind, and focus the attention within. Also, one of the other difficulties in this world is where everyone's trying to enjoy. So we're all bumping into enjoyers all the time. You know, we're going around headbutting each other, trying to get enjoyment. He's got my enjoyment, she's got my enjoyment, I want that, I want that. So it is incumbent upon us to try to, I think my father used to use the word, draw in your antlers, you know, to draw them in, you know, to actually to try to control the mind and to control the senses. And in that way, we'll find where the actual happiness is in serving Krishna. That this false ego, it's a false ego. It is wrongly placed in the material world, trying to enjoy itself. It's just wrongly placed. So we have to try to locate how this living entity stuck within the material world is rightly placed. And the answer to that question is rightly placed at the lotus feet of Krishna, or it is rightly placed as the servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme. So instead of going around looking for enjoyment, we're going around, we find real happiness and peace by serving others. So the inward journey is introspective and the outward journey is to serve others. That is where there's the level of happiness and peace. So there is this statement, which is, or this phrase, which is used a lot these days, counterintuitive. You know, we're going out with the senses looking to be happy. No, we don't be happy that way. That's the Krishna. What's that verse? Krishna. Where the senses are trying to find the enjoyment with their sense objects, but they find only repeated misery. So it's counterintuitive. We go to serve the senses of the servant of Krishna. We serve their senses, and then we're happy. And ultimately, we're serving Krishna. We're serving Krishna's senses. We're trying to make Krishna happy. So by doing that, then we become happy. So this is the message that we're giving to the world. We're trying to present. So that's the difference between Krishna and Arjuna. Krishna is totally equipoised, and therefore we're trying to locate Krishna in this world. So there's so many books about Krishna. We're reading the Nectar of Devotion in Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it always is speaking about all Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's symptoms, ecstatic symptoms. So many different ways in which we're focusing on Krishna. And this class will explain a little bit about all the different ways in which we focus on Krishna. But before we do that, I just thought we'd come back to a particular point, which is the real difficulty in this world, is that is the verse 327. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimutatma kartahamiti manyate. We have to find out what is preventing us from serving Krishna, what is preventing us from focusing on Krishna. And this verse says that the spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So we think that we're the doers, but it's carried out by the modes of material nature. So that's even a bigger blow to the false ego. It's not even existing. The modes of material nature are acting through us. So even when we perform devotional service, unless we're a pure devotee, then we're going to bring with us certain aspects of the modes of nature. So therefore it is incumbent upon us to try to purify our existence and to become as pure as we can in the service of Krishna. So that's why the introspection is so important, because we have to be able to catch ourselves. You often hear that phrase, catch yourself on. You know, my sister used to use that. How will you catch yourself on? But I need to be using that to my mind all the time, you know, because the mind has had that tendency to lead the whole focus of our attention, even while trying to perform devotional service, into attracting the attention to us. One of the biggest difficulties while performing devotional service is pratishna, is to looking for fame or recognition. It's called subtle sex life, actually, we used to call it like that. Looking for fame and recognition. You know, we do things. Why? Because we want to be recognized for doing things. It's just another way that the false ego has of trying to be the center. Oh, I'm doing this for Krishna, and I'm doing this for Krishna, and I'm doing this for Krishna. You know, and we're trying to tell, yeah, well, I'm doing this. Oh, well, I'm doing this for Krishna. You ever heard that type of discussion? I don't know if everyone ever heard. Well, I'm doing this for Krishna. I'm chanting 6 to 8 minutes in the morning, and I'm getting up at 2:30, and I'm getting up at 1:30. You know, so you know, it's this kind of a competition for again. You know, what does Prabhu call it? He wants a competitionless society with God in the center. So that's where we want to try to get to. So that's why I want to focus on this point that we're trying to perform devotional service, but we want to do it purely. Because if we don't do it purely, then we're not going to be serving Krishna. Krishna ultimately doesn't, you know, he doesn't need anything from us. He has all the planetary systems are already in his control. He has everything. He's eaten everything. He doesn't need anything from us. But we need to do the service for Krishna. So it's the mood in which we do it in is the most important thing. And we have to have Krishna in the center. So a competitionless society with Krishna in the center. And this is why cooperation is so powerful. Because when we cooperate, then the accumulated potency of our respective services will increase manyfold. And therefore, then we will please the spiritual master, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring as many people back to Krishna as possible. Krishna is using his devotees in this world to actually associate, to bring people back to Krishna, back to him. Krishna is so kind that he appears in this world because he's eternally enjoying it in the spiritual world. But he's so kind that he appears in this material world to try to bring people back. He says, "One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not take birth again in this material world." So he comes here so that we get to know about him. We know about his activities. He appears in the Bhagavatam, in the pages of the Bhagavatam, so that we can know him. It's non-different from Krishna. And he appears in his name. Krishna is non-different from his name. So Krishna is making all these endeavors so that we can concentrate on him. And we can give up this false ego, which is taking us away from Krishna. So if we are, as we are, contaminated by the modes of nature, even while we're trying to practice devotional service, then we can take shelter of Guru, Shastra and Sadhu. And then we can also take shelter in the Varnashram system. It is important that we take shelter of the saintly devotees. And that is why there is a whole parampara system. Imam parampara pratya, Imam rajarshe ovadu, Sikalanena mahata, yoga bhashta parantapa. But what does that mean practically? So the whole Varnashram system was set up in a certain mood, in a certain way, in which one is there is a whole scheme, there's a whole etiquette that goes on from how the knowledge is passed down through service and submission. And then the older, like the Shastra is there, the Guru Shastra, and the Sadhus are there. We hear the Sadhus and we inquire from them submissively. This whole tendency of submission has been completely eradicated practically in the spiritual, or in the Western world, I could say, even in the sense that the whole cult of the rugged individualist, I make my way through through this world, and I have to beat my way there, and I bash everybody down, and therefore I am the hero. This kind of mentality is there. And the whole idea of young people taking shelter of older people is, but then gone with the fairies. It's gone, because in fact the whole advertising world is we're focusing on young-bodied people, beautiful young-bodied people, and we hear what they have to say. Even if that man or if that woman is an airhead, we still hear, we're bombarded with I won't even go into the names of the magazines, but we're bombarded with the Hollywood heroes who often end up in very tragic circumstances because they're trying to maintain the position of the guru, of what they do. Everyone hears how many million Twitter followers has this person. That shows you how influential they are, and almost whatever degree of vacuous brain that person will have, to that degree their Twitter account will be greater.
Bird brain.
We have even planets. The planet has been affected by the Twitter following of one particular, or of different individuals. So I thought I would take a little section just from the Bible, which at the moment I'm reading in the section of the Prachetas, the chanting and the songs sung by Lord Shiva. So there was very, very nice little section, and it explains about how this knowledge is passed down and the mood in which it's done. So I thought I would bring it. It's the Prachetas. They're coming near a reservoir of water. While travelling, the Prachetas happened to see a great reservoir of water which seemed almost as big as the ocean. The water of this lake was so calm and quiet that it seemed like the mind of a great soul, and its inhabitants, the aquatics, appeared very peaceful and happy to be under the protection of such a great watery reservoir. So you can see how the importance of taking shelter of great souls is. So the word Sasamudra means near the sea. The reservoir of water was like a bay, for it was not very far from the sea. The water, upa, means more or less, is used in many ways, as in the word upapati, which indicates a husband, more or less. That is to say, a lover who is acting like a husband. Considering all these points, the reservoir of water, which was seen by the Prachetas while they were travelling, was actually a large bay or lake. And unlike the sea or ocean, which has turbulent waves, this reservoir was very calm and quiet. Indeed, the water was so clear that it seemed like the mind of some great soul. There may be many great souls, Gyanis, Yogis and Bhaktas, or pure devotees are also called great souls, but they are very rarely found. One can find many great souls amongst Yogis and Gyanis, but a truly great soul, a pure devotee of the Lord, who is fully surrendered to the Lord, is very rarely found. Samahatma Sadurlabha, Bhagavad Gita 7:19. A devotee's mind is always calm, quiet, and desireless, because he is always anya bilashita shunyam, having no desire other than to serve Krishna as his personal servant, friend, father, mother, or conjugal lover. Due to his association with Krishna, a devotee is always very calm and cool. It is also significant that within the reservoir, all the aquatics were also very calm and quiet. Because the disciples of a devotee have taken shelter of a great soul, they become very calm and quiet and are not agitated by the waves of the material world. And another purport. It is the duty of the Father, the spiritual master, and the king to regulate the subordinates in such a way that they ultimately become fully unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Lord. That is the duty of the superiors, and it is the duty of the subordinates to obey their orders perfectly and in a disciplined way. The word Shira Asa is also significant, for the Pachetas accepted the orders of their father and carried them on their heads, which meant they accepted them in complete surrender. So the Pachetas are given as an example of how we should actually take this instruction from the superior spiritual master and the sadhus and the shastra. We should take it on our head, and we should carry out the instruction. Yavasyatmaka budhira ekeha guru nandana bahushaka yanantas ja vidhaya yavasaina. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. But the path of those who are irresolute is many branched. So Prabhupada uses this purport to say that we should take the instruction of the spiritual master as our life and soul. So the instruction is there continuously throughout Bhagavad Gita. So Srila Prabhupada has set out a whole system, the Varnashram system in that sense, where there is a descendance, a descending knowledge coming from the saintly spiritual guides, and so if we approach it submissively, then we can actually gain benefit of this great knowledge. So that is where we want to be. We need to take shelter, and this whole mood was there in the Varnashram system. So this is how the Pachetas act, and this is why there was such harmony and peace in the world, because there was a real understanding of how to interact. Prabhupada said about cooperation, how that cooperation will bring the devotees together, how he will be pleased when devotees can cooperate, and how they take the instructions there. So this is a whole mood that was created, that in fact where devotional service can function in its best possible way. So these are the moods that we should be seeking, and we should be searching for, and we should be bringing into the association of devotees, and we should be really trying to self-regulate. This thing about self-isolate. Well, we should be self-regulating. This is how we self-isolate. This is how we stop the disease of Maya from spreading. Because if we self-regulate, then we won't be spreading the disease of sense gratification everywhere. And so that therefore the whole society will be made up of saintly persons, saintly devotees, who will be spreading the peacefulness and the health of devotional service throughout the three worlds, not just in this world, but throughout the three worlds. This is how powerful devotional service is. So the next section which I wanted to take was another section from this particular section, whereby the Pachetas are actually this is coming in line from King Prithu. King Prithu's son was called Antardan, or Vijitashva. Now he didn't want to be an actual ruler. He found it very difficult to take up the position of management, and so he, as quickly as he could, he wanted to pass on this whole headache of management to his sons. But of course, this is so important also, because this is Imam Rajarshe Ovidu. The saintly kings understood it in this way. Sometimes there's a little bit of a tension there. the great sages, they want to just perform devotional service, you know, the Brahmins in that sense, in an equal way. But the kings, they're tasked with keeping society in check and in order, and but he wanted his sons to take it on. So Maharaj Prachinabarhishat, he was one of the sons, and but the Prajetas basically they were the sons of Maharaj Prachinabarhishat. So he wanted them to increase the progeny. So he told them to go and meditate for 10,000 years. So on their way towards this lake, which they subsequently will enter, and they will stay there meditating for that time, they met Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva is all auspicious. Now, it's not very easy to see Lord Shiva. In fact, of course, we don't see him in this age. We don't see the demigods; they're not actually here. But the devotees whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see them in that sense. So these devotees, because they were so pious, Lord Shiva actually became visible for them, and so he started to give them these great mantras by which, when they actually are meditating for so many years in the lake, they can meditate on this mantra. I hope I'm not going too diverse there, but basically Lord Shiva is giving them prayers, and again, this is another amazing sections of the Bhagavatam. There's so many prayers, and what is the common thread in all of those prayers? A lot of them is praying to Krishna, and this comes back to the point I was making at the beginning. They're praying to focus on Krishna, because you know we're in cloudy consciousness. We're coming from different positions in the material world. A lot of these prayers are here for us, so that we can actually bring ourselves up to think about Krishna, to become Krishna conscious. This is Krishna's advertising. All these prayers about Krishna are for us to remain steady in Krishna consciousness. And especially in Bhagavatam and so on, we should be always constantly reciting these prayers, so that we're constantly speaking about Krishna. So it gets back to the verse 339. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, or foreign, should I say. Let's read it out. Janma karma chamedavyam evam yogati tatvaha chakvadeham pranarjama nayati mamisati socham. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activity does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. That is the only desire which we can, is to go back to the Godhead. That's the only pure desire that we can have. Now, all the other desires are in the modes of nature. They're prakriti, kriyamani, guna, karmani, sarva, shaha. It's the ahankar that's going on. So we want to get from one position to the next. So we do this through the prayers, so that we can become conscious of Krishna. So this verse is explaining about the difference with Arjuna and Krishna, and how Krishna is beyond. So here we have the Lord Shiva, which they meet. Actually, it's quite ironic, quite an interesting thing which happened. The books that I have were the particular Bhagavatams were left in our house in Gagelum. Satyaraj stayed there for a couple of years, and he had all his Bhagavatam set. So when he moved to Wicklow and then subsequently back to America, he left his set of Bhagavatams there, and actually they might have actually even been my Bhagavatams when I had them there. But anyway. But actually, when I came upon this section, I found this handwritten poem, and the poem was actually written by a famous devotee called Kushakrata Das, who translated many of the Goswami's literatures. So I know he was in regular contact with Satyaraj. So this one he wrote, and this is about a person who's always translating the different scriptures of the Goswamis and so on, and so this is a poem that he wrote. It's handwritten, so I might even frame it. Actually, it's very nice. It's called The Friend of the Gopas. So I wanted to read this out. This is a way in which we can concentrate on Krishna. So, in the forest on a springtime, flower fragrant afternoon, where great trees branch and soft vines climb, Sri Krishna plays a dancing tune. His smiling, reddish lips placed to the glistening flute of soft bamboo. Upon his graceful head, a crown of forest flower, bud and leaf, and across his chest and hanging down to his feet, a lotus wreath. Sri Krishna in the forest walks, as his flute whispers, nectar talks. Beside him are his gopa friends. Behind him are the mooing cows. Above him, with bright flowers, bends a host of kalpa taru boughs. With their eyes, the gopas sip the sight of Krishna with dancing steps. That's by Kusha Kratadas. I don't know if he ever published that, but it's an absolutely beautiful
I think I've seen that.
poem. Yeah. So he said this. It might be a translation, I don't know, but it is an absolutely beautiful, incredible poem. And so this is what Lord Shiva is saying. He's making these prayers to Lord Krishna. And so I thought I would also then speak a little bit about these prayers, because that is a beautiful prayer about Krishna. But Bhagavatam isn't always about beautiful prayers about Krishna, about Krishna's potencies, his powers. So this is why we should always study about Krishna, because it helps us to introspect. Because if we're meditating on Krishna, that is so purifying, so purifying. You know, it purifies the heart, which is, of all the dust that has accumulated for many lifetimes by hearing these prayers about Krishna. This is the actual process. So I just wanted to read some of these prayers so that we can see different ways in which Krishna is praised. My Lord, you are the provider of Pitralokas as well as all the demigods. You are the predominating deity of the moon and the master of all three Vedas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, because you are the original source of satisfaction for all living entities. There is a meditation in itself. You're a source of all satisfaction for all living entities. So here's more meditation. My dear Lord, you are the gigantic universal form, which contains all the individual bodies of the living entities. You are the maintainer of the three worlds. And as such, you maintain the mind, the senses, and the body, and air of life within them. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So they're from the macrocosm, the whole universe, is down to the microcosm, the breath, the light, the air, the senses. My dear Lord, by expanding your transcendental vibrations, you reveal the actual meaning of everything. You are the all-pervading sky, within and without. And you are the ultimate goal of all pious activities, executed both within the material world and beyond it. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances again and again unto you. My dear Lord, you are the viewer of the results of pious activities. You are inclination and disinclination, and the resultant activities. You are the cause of the miserable conditions of life caused by irreligion, and therefore you are death. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. My dear Lord, you are the topmost of all bestowers of benediction, the oldest and the supreme enjoyer amongst all enjoyers. You are the master of all the world's metaphysical philosophy, for you are the supreme cause of all causes, Lord Krishna. You are the greatest of all religious principles, the supreme mind, and you have a brain which is never checked by any condition. Therefore, I repeatedly offer my obeisances unto you. My dear Lord, you are the supreme controller of the worker, sense activities, and results of sense activities, karma. Therefore, you are the controller of the body, mind, and senses. You are also the supreme controller of egotism, known as Rudra. You are the source of knowledge and the activities of the Vedic injunctions. My dear Lord, I see you exactly in the form that your very dear devotees worship. You have many other forms, but I wish to see your form that is especially liked by the devotees. Please be merciful unto me and show me that form, for only that form worshipped by the devotees can perfectly satisfy all the demands of the senses. The Lord's beauty resembles a dark cloud during the rainy season. As the rainfall glistens, his bodily features also glisten. Indeed, he is the sum of all beauty. The Lord has 4 arms and an exquisitely beautiful face, with eyes like lotus petals, a beautiful high raised nose, a mind attracting smile, a beautiful forehead, and equally beautiful and fully decorated ears. The Lord is super excellently beautiful on account of his open and merciful smile and his sidelong glance upon his devotees. His black hair is curly, and his garments, waving in the wind, appear like flying saffron pollen from the lotus flowers. His glittering earrings, shining helmet, bangles, garland, ankle bells, waist belt, and various other bodily ornaments combine with conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower to increase the natural beauty of the Kaustubha pearl on his chest. So that's just an example of that goes on and on and on. So these Prachitas are going to meditate underwater for some 10,000 years, and they're going to be meditating on Krishna. So when they come out of the water, they're going to be performing devotional service. So to conclude, the goal of ourselves is, instead of being absorbed in ourselves, in our mind, and we become absorbed in Krishna. And in doing that, we become expert at catching where we're not being concentrating on Krishna. We become expert in picking up the motives, impure motives, which are preventing our becoming in contact with Krishna. And we become expert going within and not without. We don't try to enjoy the senses without, we enjoy the senses within. And by serving the devotees, the servant of the servant of the servant, then counterintuitively we become happy. That is the real place of our happiness. So I'll stop there and just see is there any comments or any questions. I don't think there's anything so far. No. There was one question which I actually missed last week. I think that Ekavarna Prabhu asked a question. It was in relation to Srila Prabhupada's instructions about us. What should we do? Should we I think it was. Pardon? Yeah. So I'm just going to kneel here for a second. How do we act in the world? And by setting up self-sufficient farm communities, and then that will be an example to the world. That's how we will act in a Brahminical way. The people will come and they will see us on how we're acting. And he was asking that question in relation to the other idea of trying to become the Brahminical in the world in itself. In other words, the world as it is, that we kind of come and be the Brahmins and we take over in that sense. Oh yeah, I'll just read it. Hare Krishna, Manu, Prabhu. You mentioned that Srila Prabhupada wants to change society, but my understanding is that Prabhupada wanted to create a perfect society and let others come and live with us. That was Ikavarna Prabhu. So it's a great question, and I was thinking about it actually. I only saw it actually afterwards, and I think the answer to the question is both. He wanted both things to go on. As regards what he put most weight on, I would say that he arguably put most weight on to create the society that you're talking about. He wanted to create a perfect society and let others come and live with us, because he put a huge amount of his energy to it. Like really, even from the beginning, he did that. Like he like practically at the start, New Vrindavan was begun, and he went there many times through his life. Obviously, he also went to he had his center in Los Angeles as well, but then he had a center in Vrindavan, and he had centers in Mayapur, the transcendental city. So we see though that he did put a lot of energy into New Vrindavan, into New Mayapur, into Gitanagari, into Varnashram, and we understand. A lot of people have said, a lot of our senior devotees have said that when Prabhupada said 50% of my work is done, the other 50% they understood to set up this Varnashram society, and so there was many places in which he did that, and in fact, his last wishes were when he went out and started to preach again. Even on his, there's no point in. I mean, you only have to go to Prabhupada's room in the manor and see the palanquin which Prabhupada was brought from downstairs to upstairs, and his state of health at that time. There's a picture of him on that seat, and he's like nobody would travel in that condition. Nobody, absolutely no one would. But Prabhupada wanted to preach, and he wanted to go on from London onto America, onto Gitanagari. So there's no doubt about the emphasis that he wanted to do that. But as I said, the answer to my question was, or to the question would be both. He wanted both because there's many examples of that as well. In fact, one time he wanted to set up a political party in America, and the name of the party was the In God We Trust Party. And for several months he seriously went ahead with that with Balavanta Prabhu, about looking to get elected. I don't know if it was governor or to the Senate. I'm not sure. But he definitely made a lot of endeavour. Now he stopped it at a certain point because the whole endeavour would have started to affect our charitable status and so on. But it was definitely that he wanted to affect the society as it is. You know, he wanted to change society that way too. But the fact is that Prabhupada was practical. Whatever would work. Like Prabhupada would try so many things. Like when he went to America, he's tried to study the American people to see how can I get through to them, you know, because he was so expert. So according to time, place, and circumstance, he would say different things. Like when he went to Bhaktivedanta Manor, he stayed there for 3 months in 72, and he asked Shamasundar to bring leaders of the society here so I can preach to them and so on. And in fact, at that time he preached to George Harrison. So George Harrison was, although he wasn't a Brahmin, but he was listened to by all the younger people. So he preached to him, and then George Harrison actually spread, you know, the Dharma in that way to society in general, and it brought a lot of people to Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada was very utilitarian. That's one of the things. Utility is the principle, but he would use whatever was needed, or whatever came his way, he would use in Krishna's service. I mean, I'm just reading in the Lilamrita at the moment when Prabhupada was when he just came to San Francisco, and they had him lined up to come in the front of all these meth heads and acid heads and whatever heads. You know, they were all sitting and they had this mantra rock dance. But Prabhupada had seen it as a chance to spread this Krishna consciousness. So he utilized any opportunity he could. Even in the 40s, when he was back to Godhead magazine, he would take particular topics of the time and inject Krishna consciousness into it. And then we see even today, there's so much people, they don't kind of go to the main media anymore, but they go to different bloggers. You know, they go to, I forget, Joe Rogan or something like this. There's one guy. There's many different bloggers. But now we have our own Wisdom of the Sages. We have Raghunath Das and Kaustubha. They do their blogs. And Satyananda Swami was on it there the other day. But they would talk about different things. And so many people kind of tune into it. So we had Prabhupada, he wanted to have this meeting with Indira Gandhi. He's dropped everything, went back to Indira Gandhi, and he had a whole list of requirements that he had for the devotees, and a lot of them were, I think Satyarama describes it as the demands of a Brahmin would have for a Kshatriya administration, what they should do to act properly. So in that sense, he was taking in society, taking the lead of the Brahmana, instructing the society. We also have it's important also sometimes he wanted us also to interrelate with society. Actually, we have Anuttama Prabhu, our communications devotee minister, and he was given an example when he came to Washington initially. He came in a phone call that the temple leader at the time was shouting his head off, and he said, "Who are you talking to?" So I'm talking to the head of the municipal council in Washington DC, and they won't let us put on our Rath Yatra. And basically it showed how powerful these people can be. So sometimes you have to be able to maneuver them. So he spent the next practically, I don't know how long he spent, but quite a long time bringing back the relationship, and now that Rath Yatra with them was okay to go ahead, and it's been going on ever since. So he gave that as an example of how we need to interrelate with society and to try to bring them through. And it's we have in the farm in Hungary some of our devotees. They're on this council, the local council, and recently Sri Ram Maharaj put out this video. But in the video, he has the head of the town council who's speaking about how great the devotees are. It's so clever. It's like people may not listen to all what the devotees are saying. They're a bit high in the sky, but they listen to the local head of the council who's speaking and is glorifying the devotees. So I mean, what better testimonial do you want than a government person, giving this, saying how wonderful the devotees and how wonderful their lifestyle is and so on. So, and we have examples of Shaunaka Rishi Prabhu in Oxford. Prabhupada always wanted to set up somewhere in Oxford. This is the head of the society. So Shaunaka's got he's the head of religious studies there. He's a chaplain there, and we have Rasamandala Prabhu, who has influenced the whole curriculum, the religious curriculum, in the whole of the UK. So many millions of UK kids, they hear Krishna consciousness as the voice of Hinduism, So these are different ways in which he wanted us to have that influence. But he wanted us to have these self-sufficient farm communities as well, very much so. So, and even more pertinent to the time, this whole pandemic has brought this statement by Rameshwar, where he quotes that when he's talking about Prabhupada, because Rameshwar asked a lot of very interesting questions. I think it was in 1977 when they were in Puri, and Rameshwar asked, "What will we do when this happens, Prabhupada? And what happens if there's a war? And what happens there?" So he's asking all these questions, and Prabhupada said that when there's a breakdown in society, then people will come to our farms and they will look for work, and they will just be. And he used this famous phrase, "You can't eat nuts and bolts." Prabhupada was very much saying that. So we got a glimpse of that recently when we see how these complicated food chains are going on in this world, and all it takes is just one sudden kind of jolt to that artificial society, and then all the food chains are finished, and then where is the food? You know, where do we go? You know, we can't eat nuts and bolts. Like I have my van out the front there, and I won't be able to go around and try to get some Lakshmi so I can buy food, and I won't be able to eat parts of the VW Crafter, even though it's, you know, it's a pretty good van, but I won't be able to eat it, you know. So this is the way that Prabhupada wanted us to. It kind of seemed like a two-tiered approach. At one time he wanted, you know, what, you know, use this or use that, use this or use that. And Prabhupada one time he gave this instruction. He said, just because I give one instruction doesn't mean you say that if I give you another instruction, you drop that instruction and you go to the other one. No, he wants us to use our intelligence to go on both tracks. Okay, so I hope that helps with that, and so I'd like to thank everybody for joining in today. So we have tomorrow's class will be given by His Grace Tulsi Priya Prabhu, so hopefully everybody will tune in for that, and in the meantime, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Panchakalpatarudhyascha, Kripa Sindhucha, Bhakti Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. So could you turn that?